Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Hey folks, and welcome back. This is episode 6 of 6, our final installment from our structural firefighting and tactical ventilation IFE CPD. This was with John McDonough and Karel Lambert, held at Washington Hall Training Centre in Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service. This final episode, we wanted to do that kind of round table that always goes down so well, have some more interactiveness. We'll speak with Watch Manager Lewis White, one of the key organisers and training manager at Washington Hall itself. We've obviously got Karel and John join us for the conversation. We've got Station Manager John Costello from Lancashire. And we've got Mo Ahmed, who is a station officer in London Fire Brigade. So we try to cover a few bases, some really interesting interactive members who attended there as well. So I hope you enjoy this. You know, there's a little bit of banter, a little bit of laughing and joking. And also we just kind of zoom in on some of the aspects that we all found particularly interesting. You get an understanding of how difficult this sort of thing was to organise as well. I can say from our side of it, it has been a heavy lift trying to bang all these episodes out, with all the recording and the editing and the guests and things and stuff. But you know what, we've really enjoyed it. And already we've had some incredible feedback for it. So we do want to do more. We want to use these audible time capsules as kind of vehicles of change. Help get this information out there, both to the wider fire and rescue service, but also to the public. People want to hear what we do. They're interested in it. And it was a real pleasure to be part of this. So I look forward to doing more stuff in the future. We've had a chats with a couple of different services about doing something different. You can imagine how some of those conversations have gone. Now, I would say these are from services that have approached us. We're not just bomb bursting out there. We're all very busy people, but this stuff can be nerve-wracking for services. They're going out on a limb. It's something new. It's something different, but it gets amazing traction. It really does bring an authenticity from the subject matter experts, and it's free and it's accessible, and it's usually in a language that people can understand and digest it. So big thanks once again to Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service for inviting us down. Big thanks to Lewis and the team. Big thanks for Justin to giving it the big green tick, being bold enough, brave enough to go out there and allow his service and empower his team to be able to do something like this. So who knows? Maybe we'll be getting more of this in the future. Once again, be sure to share it around, drop it in a WhatsApp group, give it to developing firefighters or even senior firefighters. Most might pretend they already know it all, but I can tell you for one, some of this stuff I didn't learn when I joined. I could have been in for probably a decade before I came across any of this material, and it didn't come through the organisation that I work for. You had to go out and find it for yourself. So pay it forward, pass it out, give other people the gift of these insights, and I hope you take a lot away from this final roundtable discussion. Please make sure you temper your excitement for all of this new fire behaviour and ventilation with some strict protocols on decontamination as well. I will say when we're doing all of our practical activities in Lancashire, there was an utmost rigidity and professionalism in the way we went about our decontamination post-wear. They've got a great facility, all of their clean and dirty zones, and it was really, really well managed. So please make sure you don't just run off and start setting fire to sofas in the garage at the station because you really want to try something out. It is sometimes easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, but we shouldn't be going out there trying to do this stuff to the detriment of our own health or the health of anybody else. So be brave, try stuff, encourage change in your organisation. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.
Much easier than gas cooling.
Yes, yeah, a lot easier than gas cooling.
Yeah, we'll kick it off. And like I say, we're going to attempt the impossible, and we will fail because we're kind of going to drop teasers, ideas, thoughts. I've got a few bits that I wanted to pick out from today. But firstly, Lewis, how was it?
Really good, yeah, really good. And
I think it's worth a quick round of applause, actually, just for Lewis. Because I was saying to you at lunch, like, you're the idea that we said like 100% of, let's say all the people that will listen to a thing, you'll get 10% of them, like you guys must teach courses all the time, 10% of them will actually ever go and do the thing. And then even less than that will tell someone else about it. Even less than that will actually reach out to someone, send the email, fly over, make the plans, bring the ideas back, embed them in the service. And I know you didn't do it alone. There's a whole training department and service behind you. But how did you think it went versus what you had in your mind?
Yeah, I always knew that sort of the content would everyone would enjoy the content, and that'd go down really well. I always knew that. I suppose the logistics of sorting everything out, that was more my concern, but it went really, really well. So there's been a bit like, since listening to the podcast you put on, with John a couple of years ago now, and then reaching out and then flying over to Belgium, doing the training there, and back and forward Teams calls and emails, and it was sort of all leading to an event a bit like this, to get a bunch of people in the room who are like-minded, and just have people around and talk about some of these concepts, which I think in UK fire service were definitely not a standard approach. There's definitely a lot of talent in the UK fire service, definitely a lot of knowledge, but in terms of a standard approach, and
did you get any pushback from anyone that was like, are you going to invite people to come and tell us we're doing this all wrong? And then what are we supposed to do about it then?
I suppose in terms for this event, not especially, because I think by this point I've had 2 years, I suppose, of me banging the drum about a lot of different tactics and methods and teaching styles. So it was nice really to have people over reinforcing sort of the thing that I've been talking about and saying. No, I don't think it's especially like telling people they're doing anything wrong. Maybe it's just like that standard approach to the way we're doing things. Because I think a lot of things get convoluted and diluted over time. So
I think there's an aspect as well that I think of it like with decontamination now. Sometimes if we recognise that we're doing something wrong, we're petrified of the ramifications of it. Like, is everyone going to come back and sue me or X, Y, Z? But it's almost like, I think I was speaking to someone earlier where they said, science progresses one funeral at a time. Because when those people that were firmly believed in that and that was ingrained and they're popularising it, when that person goes, the next wave of stuff will come in. And I think you said it best, John, it was like, if I'd have known better back then, I'd have done better. Now I know better, I'm going to do better. And I used to teach people to do this. And you said something earlier, and I wanted to sort of build on it. The tyranny of dissonance, which is a really interesting one. And also the scalability of some of this stuff. So, Mo, you're from London Fire Brigade, your services are different sizes, our services that we work in are all different services. But to be able to get that across, where you come from, the size of an organisation, to disseminate new ideas, irrespective of how much people push back against change initially, just to get that out there can take years to eventually do that full cycle of embedding something.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Yeah, look, it did take years. I came back from Sweden in 2002. It was about 6 months, and then there was in the end of 2003 with the first instructors courses, and that was a big change because prior to that, you didn't have to do any course to be an instructor. You just had to be an experienced firefighter, and in some ways that's not even the case now. Yeah, so and basically, you then delivered what you got taught, and we just went down the same road of I taught what I got taught. And we changed it immediately by saying, you will not deliver this new type of training without having done a course to get some sort of...
Because otherwise it's Chinese whispers, isn't it?
Exactly.
So when we get around the circle, it's something completely different.
And that sort of caused some problems because that wasn't the standard way of sort of doing things. But, in terms of this sort of, the world's just a small place now. And I always tell the story of training in Colorado, and Karel's a part of this story, and I'm with James Mendoza, a fantastic firefighter who's now a battalion chief in San Jose, and we were teaching some guys in Colorado, and imagine that, a Californian and an Australian in Colorado, and they asked a question about ventilation, and it was something to do with, we've got the door open, what's the heat release rate, and then if we add some windows, there's just a direct relation, and Karel's nodding, he remembers, and James Mendoza, who has a degree from Stanford in microbiology, very smart guy, he's turned to me and said, do you know? And I said, no, but I know who does. And so I said, we took the guys to get a coffee, then we get on Facebook, and next minute I've got Karel on video up on the screen from Belgium answering a question to guys in Colorado with an Australian and someone from California. That's how small the world sort of is. And
but the acknowledgement, I just want to acknowledge you on one thing there, because it's a really difficult thing for a lot of instructors. We think we have to have the answer for everything.
Yeah.
And that humility to go, I don't know that, but I know someone who does.
Yeah.
We stand in front of people as though we're supposed to be the font of knowledge.
That's right.
And I've got pips on my shoulders, and I'm an instructor now. I should know everything.
Yeah.
And
Well, the pendulum went the other way, where you then said, no, it's okay to say, I don't know, I'll find out.
Okay.
Well, the honest answer to that is, do that too many times.
Yes, there's a spectrum here.
Exactly. You've got to hold that for the big one, because if you keep on saying that, you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing. That's exactly right. I mean, and building that sort of network, and it's what I was saying to some of the guys today, is that you're part of the network. And it's not sort of like Amway or anything, but, you know, I'm an email away, Karel's, you know, we build these relationships where we are only ever, well, in Australia, we're sort of 10 hours in the future in a sense, but you're only ever 10 hours away from me reading an email and saying, wait a minute, can we help you out here, or vice versa? And once again, inside our bubble, when I first joined the job, we never looked outside of that. I mean, I wore the lion tamer's suit and thought, well, that's what firefighters wear. And, you know, so we should take advantage of that. And when younger instructors ask me, how do I become better at this? It's leave your country, get out of that bubble. And what you'll find is, and I think what Louis has found, I think what Michael from Scotland has found, that you will find that you do some things very well. But there's some other things that other people do better, and you might be able to learn, and vice versa. And so we shouldn't underrate ourselves, or, you know, but it gives you a benchmark. And then you can sort of decide, well, what might be relevant in our jurisdiction? And it sort of pales, you know, it sort of irks me a little bit that the easy one would have been Australia and England to have that relationship, but it never really sort of built in a sense, even though all of our fire brigade books when I joined and all that, you know, the books of firemanship and all that, it was all very, you know, the standard drills. We were as English as the English in a sense, and we never really tapped into that again. You know,
You're right. Like the more I tend to speak to people, like you say, your network grows or the podcast grows or whatever. It's like the more my circle of friends or respected colleagues or whatever they're referred to grows, the more acutely aware I become of the vastness of my ignorance. Do you know what I mean? The more I realise how much I don't know.
Yeah.
I always say to people, if you've worked on one watch your whole career, or you've worked on one service your whole career, you've just read one page of the fire service. And that's just the way you do it. You've read one page of an entire book, you know, and even just locally in the UK, I'll travel up and down the UK, and you see people doing things on quite a wide spectrum. And it still works. It's some of the stuff you alluded to in your last presentation. You can do a lot and still have some form of outcome, but it's that efficiency and balance.
Two of Maury's colleagues over in Belgium recently, and little things were just blowing them away, like we were going to clip our mask on.
Oh yeah,
it just made
those
their day.
clip masks.
Sort of going, you know, and there was a bunch of different things, wasn't there, that just, they sort of, why don't we have this? And
so the difference between obvious and oblivious.
Yeah.
It's the same with the word. It's a very subtle difference.
Yes,
You're like,
exactly.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. Let's just do that.
You know, and it was some of the simple things that just, I'm trying to think of a few others, but there was a number of them that just kept on surprising us. That
well, even you alluded to it about putting the mask on top of your flasher.
Like I said, and I often say my critical thinking skills were not well established. I asked, and there are stupid questions. I think it was a stupid question because if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. Like that should have been the most obvious thing to me. I should have just accepted, well, there must be a different way and it must work. Otherwise, why would thousands of Swedish firefighters, and to be honest, thousands of European firefighters, do that?
That mental friction between I'm seeing a picture that doesn't map into my memory of what I think this should look like. You know, I'm looking at a bunch of recruits. They've all got the bloody masks on top of their flashers. Let me sort this out, guys.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
It's like steady. You know. Do you see them all walking out dying? It was an interesting thing because people will associate yourself, Karel, with a lot of the technical aspects. You come from that militaristic side. You're very well versed and studied. But I was interested to hear. You recently started a degree in psychology. And I wanted to build on that aspect of it.
He collects degrees.
I just got spare time. I thought I had a day at the weekend. You know, I thought I'd just get another degree. But talk to me about what you started to learn from that side of it. In fact, before you do that, you know, have you ever read a book called Switch?
No, I haven't.
You heard of The Elephant and the Rider?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so The Elephant and the Rider.
He'll know by later on this afternoon.
You will. So, the rider is you sitting atop the elephant, yeah? You've got all this analytical brain. You know exactly what you should be doing. You've done the maths. You've looked at the chemistry. You've made the decision, yeah? But the elephant is your emotion. So unless you can emotionally invest in an idea, like we were talking about ownership and accountability, all of the logic in the world is not going to take you right unless you are emotionally invested. And it's kind of a leadership analogy where you've got to take the elephant with you. You can't just direct the rider, because when you're not, like the elephant, I just wandered off into the bush, because you've got to get someone emotionally invested in. You spoke a great lot, I mean, there's several rules as well around some of these psychological aspects of lessons you learned from perhaps the way you used to lead.
Well, the studying of psychology, I'm only at the beginning. Yeah. So it's at uni it's 5 years. I have done like half of a year, so I'm only at the beginning.
You've also been alive for 40 something years, so you've accidentally been studying it because you've seen your reaction to people in a room.
Of course. I think if you're leading, you're working with people, and quite quickly you realize that everybody's different. And what works for me is like in the matrix, the math and the science. Apparently not everybody sees the world that way. If you want to go somewhere with the group, you need to convince people, and you need to learn how to tap in their emotions and their motivation, and that's different for different people.
In other news, this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. You can view battery life, air pressure and estimated time remaining either independently on the M1 itself or from the Luna connected device screen. Also, still with the air status, alarm information, search status, and all of this provided to the incident command for confident decision making during the scene. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. One of the key parts of the Luna is their FAST system, the Firefighting Assisting Search Technology. This combines directional and distance information with thermal imaging to help find separated teammates and decrease response time. It actually connects you to the other crews in the vicinity for a unified search during the time of mutual aid by instantly notifying the network of Luna devices when there is a downed crew member, allowing for a prompt search and rescue. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. It enables you to see the exact location of your firefighters on the scene. And it doesn't require you to be sat on the station. The MSA Hub then provides a wireless gateway straight to the cloud, enabling wireless on-scene data for local and remote incident command for additional eyes on the scene. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity. MSA is dedicated to increasing safety in the fire service through technological advancements. Various feature enhancements, new products, partnerships, and integrations will provide additional capabilities readily accessible by products, software, and services in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show.
Psychology is a broad field, so I decided to go study psychology to be a better leader, but also we have quite some guys struggling with PTSD-like synonyms, and we're not well equipped to help these people. No. So that was the second way of, I should start to study psychology to get a better understanding of how the human mind works and how I can be of better assistance. How can I help? So,
you have a family, you have children?
I have a son.
You have a son. I don't know if I was talking to Mo earlier about like the different levels of self-awareness, because when people think about leadership, they think, oh, well, I don't lead a team, so I'm not a leader. Well, firstly, you're like a leader of one. Imagine when you're a kid and like, well, I'm aware of my own impact on other people. Then maybe you get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Now I become a little bit more aware of my impact on others because I'm trying to convince you, manipulate you to like me and to do a thing. Then maybe you get a dog or a horse, and then you have a child or a wife or a husband. And you accidentally do get a larger sense of your own awareness of your intended impact, like the old mindset that perhaps you were operating from. I just want you to be good at the thing, Mo. I just want you to do the thing well. I want you to listen to what I'm saying and just do the thing. Why can't you just do the thing? Because that's where my brain works. But the impact he felt may have been fear, intimidation, lack of confidence, all of these aspects to it. So when you're looking at the ownership stuff that you do with teams, you referenced Simon Sinek's books as well. Yeah. So the analogy of start with why. Like the what and the how are like paths on a motorway. It's like if we decide we're heading north on a 5-lane highway, well, we can take lots of these lanes, but we've all agreed we're heading north.
Yep.
How do you detach from that telling people the destination but not planning the route for them, and then trusting them, because you had this trusting as well when you like went back on the trucks, and it's like, how do I know if they're going to do the right thing?
That's actually a good question. I believe that there is good in, like, the vast majority of people. They want to do good, especially in our profession. They're here to help. So if we agree we are going in the right direction, I'm counting on the support of the whole crew, because once you convince people why a certain idea is good to be better at helping others, then they'll help and they will keep the ball rolling. And how we do it, for example, I have a guy who's responsible for crew training, and he's like carte blanche, as we say it. He can do whatever he wants.
Really?
And he, from time to time, he comes to ask for more money. That's often when he comes, but as long as I can afford it, why not? I have quite a budget, and my boss gives me a certain space to allocate or not allocate certain resources, and he also comes to me when he has an obstacle he can't solve. But besides that, giving him the resources and solving the problems he can't solve, why would I try to interfere with his job?
Because people like the long screwdriver. People like to micromanage. Like when you get promoted, we like to gravitate back towards, you've got a problem, I'll tell you how to fix the problem, because I used to work in training for years, so I'll just gravitate back, rather than empowering you. Like you say, the optics is a way of thinking. You can help them with a different way of thinking, but they might not do it the way you want them to do it.
Don't misunderstand me. When I'm at a fire in Brussels and it's burning really well, the thing I would like to do the most is take the nozzle and put the fire out, but that's not my job. Same thing.
It's hard though.
Well, it's less fun, I can tell you that. But my job is to manage the group which reports to me. And if I spend all my time micromanaging, I will not have time enough left to do my work. Even now, with my current leadership style, I don't have enough time to do everything I'm supposed to do.
You said a lot about faster alone and further together when you were speaking about these analogies. Like, how do you empower people with confidence? And you spoke about being happy at work, and it kind of made me think happy versus safe when we were talking back about, do we want the safest possible firefighters? Like, well, the safest possible firefighter is in bed on the fire station, never going to a fire. That's a wide spectrum between empowering people and letting people own projects, tasks, watches, and giving them the tools and the resources. How do you embed people with the right why to be able to carry out actions without you worrying too much about them?
Well, what I think, so the people who report for me are somewhere between 10 and 30 years in, so they have some experience, and I try to select people where I think they have lots of unfulfilled potential. There is a lot of margin to grow, and then I try to coach them into growth. And I tell them stuff like, we will make mistakes. We are human beings. I make mistakes. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. And if there is a problem, I will shield you from the consequences. And that's also a choice as a leader, because then you take...
It's definitely a choice, not one I necessarily see deployed
quite some heat
as
sometimes
much.
for somebody else.
It's like a falling brick. Everyone steps back and goes, oh, yes, landed on Mo. That's fine. Well, you had a thing you could have put over his head.
And it has advantages too. My boss knows that if something goes wrong, I take ownership, I take responsibility, even if I'm not aware that it happened.
Leaders take responsibility, don't have to take credit.
But at the other side, if I say, this is not my fault, I have nothing to do with it, it really doesn't. Because he knows if something happens in the training department, and Karel knows it's in the training department, he will take ownership of that mistake. But if, for example, another department screws something up, then I can say, I'm not to blame here, and he knows he will really be not to blame. Otherwise, even if he's not, but if it's within his responsibility, he will take the fall for it. So it helps also, because I'm happy to take the blame for everything which I'm responsible for, even though, it happened as a level that I'm not even aware that it happened. But I'm not okay to take the fall for another department's mess up, because sometimes they're looking at us like, you're way too advanced, way too avant-garde, but there is drawbacks to that because sometimes you really get behind. And of course, from time to time, we get our nose against the wall because we want to go too fast or want to modernize too many things at the same time. But at the other end of the spectrum, it can hurt if you are no longer up to date with how things are supposed to be done.
You can't shield people from all the consequences, otherwise
No.
we don't learn. You don't need to die as a result of it, but you do need to have some either professional, personal frustration, embarrassment.
That's also
otherwise,
a
if I
safety.
protect you completely from everything.
That's also a safe space.
Yeah.
If people know
Failing
I'm
safely,
now
yeah.
trying to do something which is outside of my comfort zone, and then maybe more prone to mistakes because it's new and it's easier to do that if you know there is a net which will catch me if something goes wrong. So I try to be that net for them, and of course sometimes I have to step in and say, oh, you're going too fast, or you should pay attention to this. And sometimes it doesn't happen a lot. I have to say, no, we won't do this. And sometimes you have to pull rank. I'm telling you, we will not do this. Yeah, and you try to explain, and I get it. They're eager and they want to do stuff. We're not ready to do this.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that happens. But you have to do that too as a leader. Say, no, here I draw the line. This we won't do. Or sometimes we can't afford that because if we spend so much money in that domain, there is other areas where we need to spend money that.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of, take it back to UK example, a lot of UK fire and rescue services with the limited budgets and all this sort of stuff. They'll come back and you guys will run back. I mean, Mo is an example, like you'll go back to one of the biggest fire brigades in the UK, well, the biggest fire brigade in the UK. You'll be like, you've had a warm bath here, you've come back red hot, full of ideas, high-fiving the mirror all the way back, and then you'll go, not because they don't want to, not because they're not interested, but London Fire Brigade is massive, to try and turn that wheel of change in something like that. But I would give you like Steelman that idea by saying we've never had so much retirement as we're having right now. So we're kind of at the sweet spot to, if you want to bring a change in now, most of the people that did have the old thing will probably be gone soon anyway. But like when all of you are heading back to your organisations, what are you thinking about the potential for change? Potential for change is massive. Likelihood, resources, appetite. I mean, how do you balance that in your head?
Well, I think for me, firstly, just thank you for Lewis for organising this, and these two gents, they're absolute legends and godlike people. I think, if anything, the simplest thing is, it's not even the big change in the investments. When you meet these guys and you talk to them, and also the other people from the UK Fire and Rescue Service, the ideas that you exchange on the simple things, it reinforces. So, I asked John at the end about the pulse spraying thing, and John's answer was bang on. It was because it's easy to get into, for me, and I can only say it for myself, I think that we have a habit sometimes, and it's a personal thing obviously yourself, like sometimes lowering things and going, oh well, that's a bit too hard, or that's a bit too technical to understand. Yeah. And a lot of what these guys said today, like obviously Karel can be very technical, but even he explains some things very simply, and that's what I take from it, that even without any investment, Pete, I think coming to these
like with
things,
decon and stuff like this, you're asking for multi-million-pound things. Oh, we want to change the whole fire station, and a lot of this is actually behavioural stuff.
Yes.
Which is what makes it most frustrating. It's like, I'm not asking you for £1 million. I'm asking you, can we start moving towards this? And I'll spend an hour changing some materials and redesign. Yeah, okay, maybe we'd like a new training centre. Maybe we'd like some great demo units, attack boxes, whatever they might be. But that's like utopia. That's the ideal. But a lot of this is just behavioural stuff, isn't it?
Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications which I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial and fire training professionals. Now, next up, I'm widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection. This is a good one. It's International Fire Protection Magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire Magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and it was interesting what you were saying. I don't think it's just for the leadership, for the psychology, because us as middle managers, that's usually where the change comes from. You won't see many principal officers at these kind of courses. It comes from excited BAIs, watch managers, crew managers, the odd station officer. But then, this is the fun part. Today is wonderful, we're all excited, like I'm always. Going back now, you've got to learn how to implement that change.
Because if you come in too hot, you'll bounce off the atmosphere.
And we've had that experience.
You've got to slow down.
We've had that experience because training department have got booked in for the next 18 months. What they're going to do.
Like, you come in with all these words. I don't know,
so be thick-skinned, be motivated, be ready for rejection, but be resilient and continue. And it takes a while. It takes a long while. Firefighting tactics is not flavour of the month at the moment. A lot of other things are, and that's for British Fire Service. A lot of that comes from
everything's cultural.
HMI. That's you said it. You're absolutely right. So this kind of is.
I don't want to take the eye off the core of what we're doing. Is that yes, we have some challenges. I mean, when we talk about psychology, we're talking about sociopaths and psychopaths and stuff like this. We want to reflect our community, and we do. And you know what? There's some arseholes in the community. So you might get one or two through our selection processes. My words, no one else's. Our selection processes are not bulletproof, and one or two are going to slip through the net. So we go, oh, you're one of them. Damn, right, we found you. Now we will manage you out of the system. But it seems like that's the entire narrative at times. And like you say, you don't want to start taking your eye off the ball of the core thing of what we're legislated to and what the public expects us to do.
But it's easy to dismiss firefighting tactics and firefighting fire skills because we're not like the police with a big ever-growing list of cold cases. The fires always go out. We don't always put them out. They either burn out because there's no more fuel left, or when it becomes a car park.
They all go out.
But we just have more car parks rather than save buildings. We're having an increased number of larger pump incidents, partly because of fuel and etc. But other things because we didn't get in there early enough and didn't put it out. But how do you measure that? And then how do you explain that to the bean counter that wants to sign the cheque? And it might not be we need a big new multi-million-pound resource, but it might be we need to commit to an extra 2 hours.
I need more time
a week.
It's usually time.
Which is still expensive.
We're shrinking recruits courses and trying to get. You said when you said about resistance. No, right now doesn't mean no forever. Like you say, a lot of leaders might be listening. I want, you explained it perfectly. I want to say yes to you, but I can't right now. So don't walk away and go, oh, you know what, ram it, just forget it, whatever, and just get the F-ums and then go, I'm not going to bother anymore. Well, it might be a yes in 6 months, it might be a yes in 12 months' time. You just want it to happen now because you've just come back. We also mentioned sorry, go on, Liz.
Well, I think that, the point that Karel made in his presentation said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
faster alone,
go together. And that's really true because back in the West, when you come back off a course, you're really hot and filled with knowledge. You feel like you come back with a secret, don't you? And you feel like you want to pass it on to everyone. And I think it's just being able to slow yourself down. I know I've learned that I have to do that. But you slow yourself down, try and take your time with it, get more people on board. Listen to people who are,
If you just think you're different and you know more than everyone else, it's just going to be a lonely place.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The leader who thinks they've got the arrogance, the knowledge, and they're at the head of an army, but they're moving so fast, they're not actually leading. They're just a bloke on their own for a walk because no one is coming with them. Because you're just not listening.
I think there's a frustration, and I went through it. I went to Sweden, came back, I just wanted to change the world. But there's a sort of a stoicism that says, well, what can I change? What do I have influence over?
Sphere of
as
control,
well?
sphere of influence.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think that if you're working in a training centre, I went straight back to a fire station, and my direct influence was the 5 guys that I was in charge of. And then suddenly the other platoons were going, what's C platoon doing? Right?
Yeah.
They're doing that pulsing thing, right? And and you start to build from that, but I could only imagine how frustrating it would be to come back into a full-on training centre as a training guy and wanting to change the world, because in a sense, when I went back to operations, it was bittersweet, but in some way I became more effective but less effective. I became more effective to my guys that I had direct control over, but prior to that, there was this sort of like, I had control in some way of the whole organisation because I was writing product and I was you know what I mean?
Training
So,
department
but I didn't
interacts
see
with
the
every
effect of
member
it.
of the organisation at some point over that
Exactly.
2-year period.
But it was much
you only
harder.
get a couple of hours with each of them. It's a small fingerprint,
Yeah.
and then they go back to wherever watch, and they get
And
1,000
they're gone.
fingerprints.
They love
of
the training.
ignore that.
Thanks, that was fantastic. See you later.
Yeah.
Who we got tomorrow?
Yes,
So
always.
in one way, that sort of this global sort of responsibility that what I was teaching or what I thought was important was ultimately very important, but it never sort of rammed home as hard until I was a duty commander and sending guys back into burning buildings, and I had much more intimate sort of involvement with the crews, you know. So it's just different. But it would have been really frustrating, and for Louis to sort of come back and say, well, I'm in the right environment to have change, but it's difficult, and I've got the people who will support me and so on. But sometimes you just got to hunker down for the long one on that.
Yeah,
you know.
I think it's like you just have to sort of do slow change and not try to do too much too soon. I think a lot of times, you know, people are always very protective over what they know and they're protective over what they learn.
Because it's an accusation that you've been doing it wrong.
Yeah,
as well.
they're even more protective over what they taught other people. So if you're there trying to tell them that you've done something wrong, you've taught something wrong, and the thing is, there's probably a lot of things. There will be a lot of things that I've taught that are wrong.
Definitely.
I just didn't know it at the time. At the time, I thought it was right. I was only going off the best thing I thought at the time. You know.
I do that with my kids all the time.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I taught them that last week.
But I think
learned something new.
You know, one thing I think is important is to, you know, definitely respect your sort of respect the order you've got to do things if you want to bring things in, which tends to be slow.
You've got to work with the system.
Yeah, you've got to work with the system. Yeah. And, you know, I was listening to, I think it was Matt Rassandi did a podcast, and I listened to, he said, you always got to respect your organisation. You know, as soon as you start disrespecting it, and then you get yourself in a position where you're just going to make enemies and make problems for yourself, and that's not how you get the sort of changes over the line. It's a sort of slow process. You got to, you know, people say it's got to come from the top. I don't really think it does. No. I think it can come from lower down. You just have to persevere, be passionate about it, be enthused about it, and then, you know, before you know it, you can start putting things together like this, and then one thing leads to another, and, you know,
that reminds me, you said that has to come from the top, and it brings me back to a psychology aspect you were talking about in leadership. You showed that clip of the doctor. And did you ever hear the analogy of the tree versus the pyramid? Did you ever use that one?
No.
So most organisations, we look at them like a pyramid. Yeah, all the firefighters are at the bottom, and then there's less crew managers, less watch managers, less station group, blah blah blah, and then there's a chiefy chief sat at the top, and we all work for him or her. And I remember having a conversation with someone in a previous organisation, and it was similar to the clip you showed, where that person was like, I work for you. And they gave a description of a tree, and they're like, we're here at the bottom, we've got to draw in resources, money, political support to feed you. Yeah, because you are there, firefighter, you're the leaf on the branch, getting bashed by the rain and the weather, and some of you fall off and some of you die, and you're getting hit by the public every single day. I need to feed you with everything you need to do your job well. You need money, resources. So it was one of your rules, you know, how can I help? You know, how has that been a shift for yourself or anybody really in the room from do it this way, whereas you're the one that's in the trenches every day? How can I help you do what you do better?
If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drillbook, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters. So you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, as I told in the lecture, when I started doing that, I expected naively that firefighters and crew commanders would come to me, do this, do that. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It takes time for them to adapt to that new situation because they're used to, management never asks for something. They think they know everything. Yeah. And there is a gap between the senior officers and the guys on the fire ground, even towards, they are the enemy. So
they're all out to get us. They're not.
So it takes time to bridge that, and then we have conversations like. So one of the buzzwords in our department is, wow, there is a real, I don't know the word in English, a canyon between the firefighters and the senior officers.
It's a great book, Crossing the Chasm. Have you read that? No. It always talks about that gap. Crossing the chasm is the gap between leadership.
We're in new territory here. 4 books that he hasn't read.
It's a great book.
Plenty of books that I haven't read. But then I answered these guys, and you're digging to make it bigger whilst you don't see the bridge that I'm trying to build.
It's interesting. Once again, I try and synthesize, but I talk to my guys and there is that distrust, like you said, of management, and they draw a line somewhere. Now, inspectors, we're the first rank of senior management, so when we're with them, we're one of them, but when we're not, we're counted in the senior management. And I look at it as there's some in my position, a duty commander or inspector, that they want to please up. Right? All they want to do is make the zone command, the superintendent happy and meet his or her needs.
I used to say kissing up and kicking down.
Well, I say I please down. I want to please down. I say to my guys, I want to please you. My job is to please you guys and make sure you can do your job effectively. Now that's pleasing down, and I don't care about pleasing up. So in my mind, that's how I sort of view it. My objective is.
Is that why you won't maybe get to the very top then? Because that's.
I'm not going any further.
Okay.
No, it really is. But
but isn't that sad though? Because often those that should do it the most are interested the least.
Well, I think
because you don't want to play the political game, or you don't want to do the silly interviews.
No. It's really much simpler than that. When I was in training, I had many chances to go to superintendent, which would have been. I was a team leader of fire training. It would have been team leader of technical training, which would have had BA under it, fire training under it, and so on. And I made that decision because when I then returned to operations, I would, as a superintendent, I would go for a zone commander job. That's Monday to Friday sitting in an office. And like Karel, that's not me. If I stayed an inspector, when I went back to operations, like I did finally 7 years ago, I was now turning out to jobs. I was living the experience with my guys. I was training my guys, and that's what appealed to me. So it's really the nature of the job rather than could I do more good in the organisation by being a next rank? I don't know, actually.
I also think it's a different skill set. So I'm going to introduce an uncomfortable topic to the conversation, one we didn't speak about today. So we do something in the UK called direct entry now.
Right.
And I think there's masses of value to it, but also I think there's inherent dangers to it because you guys.
I think it's a mistake.
Okay, we'll go there in a minute. Stick a pin in that one for me. Because, well, you said, so we had this conversation out publicly earlier, and I think I threw it back to you because you were saying about people growing from the ground up, having an actual experiential knowledge. The flip side to that, if I wanted to give devil's advocate on both sides of this, because romantically, I'm a big knuckle-dragging, meathead firefighter, I just want to do the thing. These
Are you
chief
saying
fire officers...
You in particular, or just...
Me, yeah. Well, I'm sure there's lots of us. But chief fire officers are in charge of a multi-million-pound organisation. Most people have never been trained in budget acquisition, investments, blah, 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 all of this other stuff. It's a different skill. And it would be very, very foolish to have employed me as a young... Now, I may have learned a lot on the way, and fantastic. Now, but we don't want them making tactical decisions as well. So there's a line. So we bring ours in at this around a station manager position. I think that's too close, my personal opinion. No one else is in the room, but that's too close to the thing, because I could actually be on an instant ground and give you a direct instruction, and you could do it, but I haven't got a clue what I'm asking you to do. So I would have preferred they put them one more above, even though they got paid more. There's more filters, because if I go, hey, tell Mo, for people that are listening, we're sat 4 places, if I tell Mo to do this, you'll go, Peter, that's fucking stupid, I'm not going to tell him to do that. And there'd be 3 filters before it got to you and go, do this instead. But don't do what he just said, because that's stupid.
But I think we could argue there's value in both.
Yes,
in a sense.
at different levels.
I think we can do both. I mean, what I would like to see is, I would like to say that you could join the organisation as a junior firefighter, work up through the ranks. When you get to senior officer, though, let's give that guy a degree.
A lot of professional development needs to come in there, like what you're doing with yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
But pay for it and actually offer that as
I tried to do an MBA through my service a little while ago, and they wouldn't do it.
Well, this is what I mean, but that would have been money well
spent. But I'm
spent.
stupid, so maybe.
Because the other alternative is just to bring them in with that already, and then you miss all of that other stuff. So
yes.
I don't see.
And then you try and back engineer that.
I can't see why it can't be done. Both can't be done in that sense.
It's tough.
Well,
Carol, wade in. You disagree?
I am direct entry.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a special case because I was.
And you think you were a mistake?
I was a firefighter before. Well, I think that you need to have a hybrid model. Everybody starts at the bottom, and you create a fast track.
Okay.
And you invest in personal development. I agree with you. That even goes for direct entry levels.
How fast is a fast track? Because we do. Our
Let's
thing
say
is a 36-month development
let's
plan.
say 10
A lot of
years.
them do still do. They are doing the firefighter development, aren't they? So.
Let's say 10 years.
Okay, that's a lot longer, which is
Yeah.
fine. I'm not disagreeing. Because I do disagree. They're like. Yeah, well, the people that came in the normal route, we know how many people retire now. People come in the normal route and they're a DAC, area manager, whatever, in 4 or 5 years.
Really?
And you're like, yeah.
We're 10 years to station officer.
Yeah.
See, we don't have that. We just, and I'm pleased anyone tell me BS if their services or organisations do differently. But if you learn how to say the right words in the right interview, and you've got, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you've done anything, because it's not a meritocracy.
Yeah.
It's just,
And do you
you've retired, someone needs your job,
Yeah.
and there's only 2 of you in the room, which one of you fancied it?
Do you
sound better, you can
obtain
have it.
high quality people with that process?
No.
So then it's not a good process.
But we don't have the liberty of 20,000 people applying to join my fire brigade.
Okay, then
We're not as interesting as we thought we were. And I try and make it more interesting, we all do, talking on, and I appreciate everyone's bravery for having this conversation, to give people insights into the job. I wish we had the ability to go, we only want the best. Worse is, have you got a pulse? In you come. And just lowering the bar as low as we can to get some people
Has
in.
the fire brigade become less of a wanted occupation?
I think we sell it very badly. I don't think we market
Right,
it. The
okay.
military market 24/7, even if they've got no jobs, which they usually have. We've always got jobs, but we're scared to death of committing professional suicide. So everything gets so sterilised, it doesn't look interesting. And people sat around this table might feel nervous about the things I'm saying because we're going to put it on a public platform. But this shouldn't be rare. People should be able to talk about the job all the time.
I think there's been I think there used to be, perhaps more so than before, like an air of elitism that went with fire service, joining the fire service, in that, you know, that it was a skilled. I think it was looked at as it's quite a romantic sort of occupation, and sort of looked at like
a
that.
wizardry.
Also, and then also, you know, firefighters are big and strong. I think there was that sort of mindset around it, which, you know,
that can alienate a lot of people.
Not always the case. It can alienate people, and I think 100% everyone should get the opportunity. You know, I think sort of to suggest everyone can do it talks it down a little bit, because not everyone can necessarily do it. It's not necessarily for everyone. However, everyone should have the opportunity to do it. I mean,
everyone should have the opportunity to do it, but it's something you built on, wasn't it, Karel? Like, people say this on advertising campaigns. Anyone can be a firefighter.
That's not
No,
true.
they can't. Not because their hair is a different colour, or they speak a different, or their skin is a different colour.
It's-
Just because everyone can't do it.
It's easy to show that that is not true. I would like to see how you will train somebody who's blind, who can't speak, in a wheelchair to become a firefighter, because he's part of everyone. Not everybody can do it, and that's an obvious example, but there's also people who seem to be like they're capable and they're not. Recently we had a guy who was capable, and he was technically capable, and he was physically fit, but as soon as the mask of the BA had to be put on his face, he started to stress, and that increased his air consumption. He'd skyrocketed. So when the guys were like at half a bottle, he was already empty. That's not feasible.
But if you wanted them all in, an argument might be, why don't we pay a psychologist to work with you for 3 months to dissipate that fear, to do some exposure therapy, and we're like, I get it. And equally with neurodiversity, like if people can't learn a specific way, we shouldn't just kick them out the door.
He's wearing 2 cylinders. Oh, that's just Roger. He wears 2 cylinders. That's how we solve that problem.
Who's the other person on the truck? That's his psychologist. He just comes in case he's having a moment, and he goes, Rog, let's do the exercises. Let's hold hands. Let's breathe. Okay, I'm being a bit mean now, but do you know what I'm saying? There's we can help people, and we want to make it different and give you tools and resources, whether you're dyslexic, whatever your thing is. But we can't go, let's put a stair lift on the ladder. No, I'm sorry, maybe you just can't be a firefighter, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'm all for finding ways to go all around that, but you need budget for that. So an example with a psychologist, maybe a psychologist who works one-on-one for 3 months can't sort out a problem, but I don't have that kind of money, so off you go.
That's it.
That's it.
Harsh but fair.
You've got to draw the line somewhere.
And I think the thing is, I think a little bit of it, I think, Pete, is a bit lost, I think, somewhere, because I think I would say from London, and I don't speak for London Fire Brigade at the end of the day, but what I would say is we had the accelerated programme a number of years ago, and we did get some really good people from there. I think if you have a robust programme, you've got to, because even in Karel had experience, and then he got through that way. If you look at the military, they've got Sandhurst, and they spend a year, and having been in the army, when I was just a normal soldier, and the captains and the people who came in, their level of leadership and skills, because that was really robust, you could do it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having the accelerator, but you can't do it in just cutting the corners in terms of just because you want people, because we do want people with different ideas, and some of those people do bring different ideas that we need. And I think the other thing about extending to say, I think it got lost at some point that everyone could be a firefighter. It got lost. But they got that message completely wrong. As Lewis said, I agree. Everyone should have the opportunity to do it.
Yes.
But, we clearly know, everyone in here knows, not everyone can be a firefighter. That's just a fact of life. But it's the
I couldn't be a brain
lost.
surgeon. I could be optimistic, motivated, passionate. But don't give me the scalpel. Because I've got ADHD and I'm an addict. This ain't going to go very well.
You'll give it a shot, though.
Absolutely. I'll be optimistic all the way. Now give it a few more hours. Just keep CPRing, and we'll just tell them it.
It's that opportunity, I think, Pete.
Opportunity,
I agree. That opportunity, I suppose, and I can't speak for every country. In this country, it was like, even when I came into fire brigade, I came into fire brigade 17 years ago, and I didn't think I could be a firefighter. When I was 17 years ago, because I had this experience where, So
for people that are only listening, just give us some understanding of your background. You're a black male and you play fire, so people might still think you're rare.
Yeah, and I grew up in London, and bad experiences, for example, with the police and stuff, and I associated the fire brigade with that a little bit as well. And
uniform
at
services.
the time, they were very close together, and they were predominantly big, burly, strong white guys. And I thought I was I was very skinny, didn't get great skills at school and that. And I thought, I've got no chance of becoming a firefighter ever, sort of thing. And my little sister got locked in a bathroom once, and the fire brigade turned up, and they were so lovely. It changed your view of them. And then at the same time, but it still reinforced, all 5 guys that came that day, and they were guys, were all big, white and very tall. And again, it was still I've got no chance of becoming that. So it was only sometimes when you saw someone that looked a little bit like you, and then people who engaged with you, and that like in the way that these guys do, and they make it really simple. They talk about the why and stuff. When they engage with you that way, I can do that job. So I think that's what it is, Pete. It's definitely got lost with, because I agree, and I don't think anyone says in this room, not everyone can be a firefighter. It's physically, it's true. Like you said, I'd love to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
Never going to be an astronaut in a million years. But it's that opportunity.
Given that opportunity, and the women in the fire service stuff, we're going there and again in a month or two's time. Not everything they do is fantastic, but they have got this thing where like, you've got to see it to be it. And like you say, you do need to be able to see someone of a similar background to you, with a similar, like you might be a black male, you might be a recovering addict, you might be whatever. And like when I was injecting drugs in myself for 10 years, I'd be like, well, I couldn't do that because they'll just find out I used to take drugs and then that's game over, isn't it? But you're like, well, no, because that was just part of your past. Even if you've had a criminal record in the past, whatever, it's like, you can evolve, you can change, but you've got to be able to see someone in there that does something similar.
Or not even that, just inspire you. These guys, like I said, like in particular, and these guys, I'm not looking like because these guys are Karel and John are both two middle-aged white men. They're not like so.
Well, us skinny guys are going to stick together.
It's the way they deliver it. It's the way they teach you and inspire. Like from today, like the 4 non-negotiables, they're in there, man. Like,
but did you get most from the presentation or from the way they delivered it?
The way they delivered it, the way.
So this is what I'm always talking about.
Make
Our job is to inspire. You are the filter through which all of this stuff is gonna. So I hate it when you see instructors just reading from presentation, reading from PowerPoint. I'm like, put some jokes in there. Yeah. Tell a story. That's how the Bible was written. We learn through stories. Yeah, and you give that person that inspiration.
You
give them
tell the Pascal joke.
No, well, I wrote it down. I just need to work on the delivery. It's all about timing, right? But no, you've got to be able to put yourself into it because I don't think we put enough onus on inspiration. And I think it sounds whimsical and people woo-woo and all this sort of stuff. But motivation, you said it, John. You know, it's only going to take you so far. I always say it with exercise. You've got to have a purpose and a vision. I always think of like Martin Luther King. He didn't have a tactical plan. He had a dream. Yeah. And then you just described this dream and you found your own path to it. Like if you can paint the vision, they'll get there.
Today's podcast is powered by our partner Lifelines and their revolutionary approach to functional hydration. Just like in firefighting, water is essential for body function, but studies show more than 80% of firefighters are dehydrated. A 25-year study findings from the National Institute of Health showed poor hydration to be linked to early aging and chronic disease, and even mild dehydration results in significant negative impact outcomes including headaches, exhaustion, rapid pulse, irritability, and poor cognitive function. A study conducted by Yale University showed that participants who were just 1% dehydrated had a 12% increase in errors when performing tasks that required cognitive flexibility. In addition, dehydration is shown to worsen mood and attitude, contribute to confusion and poor decision making, and negatively affect memory and judgment. In other words, you really don't want your incident commander, firefighter, or for that matter any first responder on a critical scene to be even slightly dehydrated. Mild dehydration occurs when a person is just 1.5% dehydrated, a condition that does not even trigger the thirst response in most people. So just imagine how quickly a firefighter or any first responder can and does become dehydrated in their day-to-day duties, which is why I address my hydration first thing every day with Lifelines. Go into the notes for this episode and specifically check out Lifelines Hydro Fuel and Hydro OG by clicking in the notes for the podcast for a clean energy solution designed for those who demand more from their day. Now back to the show.
The first time I went to FDIC and had a lecture about fire, what was that, 2011? I'd lectured there in technical rescue, urban search and rescue earlier in the 2000s, and I had about 10 guys in the class, because it was sort of when the exhibition opened and so on, and they fill out evaluation at the end of it. I'm sort of reading through it, and the guy sort of said, it was interesting. He was a little intense, though.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Make an impact.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You want to bang,
sort of
keep the people alive.
But, anyone can read off the board.
Yeah.
And really, I think you need to tell a story, and you need to get inside people's heads, and you need to sort of say, because we've all been there, and I say you can't bullshit a bullshitter, like, and I see my job as taking people on a journey, and we might be quite wide apart, but at the end of it, I bring it to a point where there's no wriggle room, and this is how I treat my firefighters. I want to bring them to a point where they have to agree with me, and I know that sounds bad, but what I want to do is bring them to a point where we share the same expectations and we're in the same line. And to do that, you have to hypothetically tell stories and build everything from a story.
Yeah, and to come closer to your... Do you ever play a game Marco Polo? Yeah. Marco Polo, for anyone who doesn't know, one person's blindfolded in the middle of a room, they shout Marco, everyone else shouts Polo. I think of this like fire service in a room full of smoke. I just keep you to shouting out, and then we get closer and closer, and you go the wrong way, and then you get, and eventually we want to meet in the same place.
Yeah.
I want to take you from where you are to where I am, or where we collectively need to be. At the end of this session, we all need to be stood near the door.
Yeah.
Now, times during this hour, I'm going to get it wrong, and you're going to end up going off on some right tangent. And then we're going to keep coming closer and closer together until we hopefully arrive at the same point.
We should be able to disagree. We should be able to have robust discussions because, I mean, that's why I said at the beginning, challenge everything I say.
Didn't get much challenge.
You know, no. Well, I think that that will happen because I get a sense as I sort of read the room that there's a lot happening and a lot was thrown out there, and so it's still sort of crunching.
Oh yeah.
And then tomorrow they wake up and they go, no, I do have a question, and I don't quite think what was happening there, and that's fine, but. You know, it's good to thrash those things out, and no one has to agree, but the more you sort of thrash them out, you come to, we're all doing the same job, and it's no surprise to me whatsoever that I can have British firefighters turn around and say, hey, I think there's something about that I like.
But that's the art of debate.
You know, it's
the art of debate and conversation. I think we're losing it. I think that's why podcasting's grown so much, because we've lost the art of conversation. We've lost the art of debate. If two people come in here and they see me and you, as you say, thrashing it out, they're like, can I stay out there? John and Peter are having a right Barney. They're just shouting at each other. No, we're having a debate.
And it means that you care enough about it to expend energy and to get in
I want to push your idea to see if you believe in it.
Well, you've got to try and break it.
Yeah.
And if I put something up on the board, whether it's the non-negotiables, what's the first thing you do? You try and break it, right? Can I break it? And like the last one, if you like, put water on the fire as soon as possible. It's sort of breakable on its own. But if you then say, with no visible victims and no further information, first line in should be fire attack, and fire attack never ignores a victim, and search and rescue never ignores a fire. That's unbreakable now. So it's about making these unbreakable things. And if someone can break it for me, hey, great, let's go back to the, you know what I mean? But
that's why sometimes I do like science, because every bit of science is, I'm here to disprove your idea. Yeah. We're all, and I want you to because you're going to show, I missed it. Oh, was there an extra page there? That was page 7, I missed it. And I made a cognitive leap over that little chasm, and you went, no, there's a gap there in your knowledge, in your thought process. One thing when we come back to this sphere of control and sphere of influence, with things people can do, even if you can't go back to your service, change the tactic, change the strategy, turn fire behaviour on its head, speed of attack. Yeah. Speed kills. Like, well, that's what the police say, you know, but like, speed is so effective. Reps. You know, I know it from the gym, and I know it from sitting in a small ventilation room on a retained fire department, putting a BA set on 50 times just to do it quicker. You know, you set up a massive complex drill, and then you're like, right, get yourselves under air, gang, and it takes them 7 minutes, and then they do the pantomime 27 door checks, 15 door openings, let's have a chat and send 17 messages to see if anything's changed back at HQ, and then we'll go in and fight the fire.
I mean, there's a number of ways you can become faster. I mean, there's an incident command speed. Yeah. How quickly can I make a decision where this is what we're going to do? That can be slow or fast. And then there's the practicalities of moving hose and moving forward. And really, like, that's outside of any decision about what nozzle you're going to use, whether you should be straight stream or fog, whether that fire is showing certain signs of X, Y, and Z. That's all important. But when it all boils down to it, when the time goes to jump off, how quickly can you put water and as much water as possible, given your setup, in the shortest time possible. Sometimes I think we've just overlooked that.
Yeah. I had this conversation with a direct entry person the other day when they were talking to about level 2 incident command, and they were trying to get all of the pieces of the calculation together. And I said, absolute certainty is only available to you in retrospect. Yeah,
absolutely.
So you're always trying to hit a moving target, because you do 7 calculations on your bow and arrow. By the time you've done the calculation, it's moved. Yeah, so you're only ever going to have a 70% decision, and you've got to go with what you've got, because by the time you've waited to make the best tactical decision, it will have changed. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got to factor in, you showed that graph of the extra 1 minute, 2 minutes to do this. So by the time you've made a decision, it's going to be 6 minutes before they've actually done the thing you thought. And then you go, no, wait, stop, turn left, because now you've got to go in.
You can have a fantastic tactic that would have worked within the time frame which was reasonable, and then the guys break your heart by buggerising around with their BA, you know what I mean?
Because you're assuming it on your own skill set.
Well, it's the spread.
Yeah, you're going to step B up, and then you're like 5 minutes later when you expect them to be on step 4, they're still doing step 1, and you're like, oh no, sack it off.
And a fire just doesn't care. It's just going to do what it does for the next 5 minutes, and you know, a window may fail, the doors. I mean, I don't need to. We've all fought fires, but you know, give a fire 5 minutes. More than you should have, and expect some consequences.
That's where it's more challenging than our other responsibility. So an RTC road traffic collision, it's kind of static. Once the damage is done, it's static. Unless you know, it's got a tanker with something sprinkling over, but you get
water's rising and it's on the edge of the bridge.
Exactly. Shark-infested clusters, etc. But usually it is. This is the situation, and this is once you've closed the road and everybody's chalked it. Get on with the job, and we know what direction we're going in. But like you say, with
but you do have to do that one right. Like that flipped analogy versus fire, they're genuinely never going to get out of that car unless you do something. Yeah. That fire will go out. If you fuck it all up, it's still going to go out eventually when the whole world burnt. Yeah. But you need to get this right.
Race against that, the bigger that fire is becoming, and the more megawatts there are, and the more energy, the more power it's got, and then the more medium you need to put it out. It's getting harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. Or you do nothing, and then it becomes a 10-pump fire, but it goes out anyway, and it's still to your medals. But we didn't do our job.
Someone else will take over in a minute, so don't worry.
Yeah, I'll make pump 6 so that I get
no one will remember my bad.
There's a weird sort of irony here that we've built systems that take time for safety, and once again, I think we need to put them under the spotlight. But we know culturally everything's been about speed. We have we don't go down the stairs, we go down a pole. There's traditions of, well, that's the flyer. We have the flyer in Sydney that's out in 30 seconds. Like we just know when we've grown up that speed is everything, and then we go ooh and slow everyone down with these. We put these, you know, sort of stop people from acting in some way. So finding that balance is extremely difficult. I mean, I don't say I have the answers, but
no. But that's where that's one thing, to be fair to them, where I think National Operational Guidance has been useful, because it is intentionally vague. It's like, look, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it because you're going to come across a million variabilities. And if I make something too rigid, it will actually work as a barrier to stop you doing what you know is the right thing to do. And you might have to stretch outside your localism, but you're still adhering to National Operational Guidance. The guidance is roughly this: it's a 5-lane highway. Well, I'm going to actually go in lane 2 or lane 4. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't actually matter where I go, as long as, you know, I'm going in the general direction. I want to be respectful for everybody's time, but I did want to ask, like, we've talked about so much today, and we're going to have a practical day tomorrow. We'll go back with all of our ideas and all this sort of stuff, but I always have something where I say, you know, don't send ducks to Eagle School. So if you've got all this great knowledge and you've brought it all back with you, have realistic expectations, like speed. You know, speed could be something. You could just keep doing the same thing you're already doing. Don't try and change it. Just get them to do it faster.
Or look at
that repetition.
Or look at things that I call redundant.
Yeah.
Do we really need to do that? Yeah. And you might be able to just pare a couple of things back. That also gives you minutes, right? So it might put some things under a spotlight, and you suddenly go, we've never looked at that before, but why are we really doing that? You know,
100%.
So little simple things.
In fact, you mentioned one about wetting the wheels. That was a good one. Why are we doing that?
I
was wetting the wheels. It's a great one. Any
every Saturday points? They used to wash out headquarters fire station. You wash out the engine bay every Saturday, and they're going, why are we washing this out? Because that was the horse shit that every Saturday that got hosed out. So we were still washing out hose bays on a Saturday.
100%. We still do it. We still do it everywhere.
There you go.
Anything we haven't touched upon, anyone wants to bring up on a closing point before we wrap it up? Beautiful. Thanks so much for your time, fellas. Really, really appreciate it. And looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, towels, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders. And please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening. And wherever you're around the world, please support your emergency services responders. And thank you for listening.